When James Wright died in 1980 at the age of 52, he was one of America's most celebrated poets. Together with Robert Bly, Galway Kinnell, and other poets of the deep image movement, he brought a new, wild energy into American poetry. Although Wright's early work was heavily influenced by poets such as Robert Frost and E. A. Robinson, in the early 1960s he became increasingly interested in poets outside of the American tradition, particularly poets such as Federico Garcia Lorca, Pablo Neruda, and the Austrian expressionist Georg Trakl. What these poets had in common was the wildness and immediacy of their imagery, the freedom with which they associated in their poems. Pushing back against the measured and impersonal poems of the post-war period that had been dominated by the new criticism, American poets such as Wright were now looking for sharp associations, visceral immediacy, and a restorative expression of subconscious energies in their writing. In Bly's words, the poet should not plod through the poem, line after line, like a man being escorted through a prison. Rather, the speaker should leap from one image, one thought to another. These leaps, Bly said, are not private, but somehow bound in nature. Anyone sensitive to the inner life of objects, he would later write, can ride with the poet. And in this way, the deep image poets sought to create an immediate connection between readers who might otherwise have found themselves in an increasingly fractured modern world. In Wright's poem A Blessing, from his 1963 collection The Branch Will Not Break, the speaker approaches two horses in a pasture, hoping, as a respite from his journey, to touch the laws that bind him to the natural world. The final line break of the poem, which comes after the word break, is an extreme illustration of the ambiguities that can be unlocked by lineation. A Blessing, by James Wright. Just off the highway to Rochester, Minnesota, twilight bounds softly forth on the grass, and the eyes of those two Indian ponies darken with kindness. They have come gladly out of the willows to welcome my friend and me. We step over the barbed wire into the pasture where they have been grazing all day alone. They ripple tensely. They can hardly contain their happiness that we have come. They bow shyly as wet swans. They love each other. There is no loneliness like theirs. At home once more, they begin munching the young tufts of spring in the darkness. I would like to hold the slenderer one in my arms, for she has walked over to me and nuzzled my left hand. She is black and white. Her mane falls wild on her forehead, and a light breeze moves me to caress her long ear that is delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly I realize that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossom.